Hey guys, Matt here, and today we're going to do a quick little tech talk about the Eastwood steering wheel puller kit. So I have a good project here to show you guys this on. So I have a 1932 Ford that I've been working on that is an old hot rod, and this car has a kind of modified or not original steering column on it, and it actually uses a later steering column and wheel from a late 50s, early 60s Ford. And with this type of wheel and many antique cars, you need to use a steering wheel puller to remove the wheel, even if it's been put on recently. So the first time I had to take the steering wheel off in this car, it was very difficult because this car has been sitting for 50 or 60 years and the wheel was pretty difficult to come off. Now that I've had it on and off a handful of times, I still need to use my steering wheel puller kit every time I mock up the steering wheel and the steering column to do a quick test fit. I need to use the puller to actually pull it back off, because when you press these on, they have splines that are a tight fit, and it's even on a lot of these it's tapered, and you need a puller to actually remove it off, even if you put it on 10 minutes ago. So what I'm going to show you is a couple little tech tips along the way for removing this steering wheel that'll hopefully help you on your next project. Alright, so here's a little close-up of the wheel, and I'll show you guys how most of these steering wheels are, at least on especially these old Fords. So this wheel again is a 60s, early 60s vintage, I believe, Mercury or Ford steering wheel. But the way you take this off is going to be the same no matter the year within reason. So on this particular wheel, there is a center cap here, and the horn ring actually kind of works around it. You can pop that cap off there, and we now have exposed the center of the wheel. So on this particular wheel, there is obviously the center bolt, which is going to be common on pretty much any automobile. And what this has is there's two bolt holes right there, top and bottom, and that's where we're actually going to attach our puller to. On this particular car, or most early Fords, it's fine thread. It's 5/16 24. And what I like to do on all of these, because if probably the wheel has not been pulled in a really long time or ever, what I like to do if it's the first time pulling one is actually take my tap and run the correct tap in here. So if you have another type of vehicle, GM, whatever, you may need to double check what you have. This one, again, I've already run through on this wheel because we've had it off once or twice. But what I like to do is just run it through there and make sure that the threads are all good. The worst thing would be to run that in there and actually damage our steering wheel puller kit, because you could be up a creek if you don't, if you're at a junkyard or whatever. This could be a problem. So there we go. So that's all good. We're going to clean the threads out there. Now we are ready to take this center bolt off and hook up our puller. Alright, so here's our steering wheel puller kit, and I end up using basically one style most often because of the cars that I work on, but there's a couple different ways that you can use this kit and combine these different parts. So there's a set of bolts that are in here that are basically what's going to thread into your steering wheel. Depending on the wheel that you're using, or the manufacturer of wheel that you're pulling, you may need to pick the correct bolt that fits your steering wheel. So test fit those and run them in. As you can see, these ones are the ones I use most commonly because they're all beat up and been used a ton of times. So we're going to be needing those. So there's a couple ways you can use this. So the most common puller that I use is this particular attachment. So this has our draw-through bolt here, and this actually presses on the steering column. And then we have these two slots here, which these bolts will drop down in, thread into our steering wheel, and then as we draw this through, it will push and pull the steering wheel off. So that's how this one works. Now, there's also other attachments here that you can use that will actually, if you don't have a way to thread in, you can use this style that will go over the wheel and will push in on it. So depending on the wheel, you can look at your manufacturer's manual, if you have a repair manual, or you can take a look online. You can see which style that you need to use, but we're going to be using these pieces right here to pull my steering wheel today. Alright, so we're all set to pull our steering wheel off here, so we will work on getting all these pieces attached. So I usually thread this back quite a bit so we have plenty of room to get that on. So that's going to push onto our steering column there. and we want to try and get that centered. So we will put this through here, line up your bolts here. You need to come back a little bit. There we go. So you keep backing off that center bolt, and then we will get that started by hand, and then got my ratchet all set up here. We'll get those tightened. So get the two of them started. Like so. And then we can tighten these down. Alright, so you can tighten them down basically till they're snug. They don't need to be like insanely tight. You just want to kind of run it in until it basically bottoms out the threads, and you'll feel it like right there. That's about it. So we're not going to, you can damage the threads or break the bolt if you really start hammering it down. So then what we will do is we're going to tighten this down here, and as we tighten this, it's a 1/2 inch, I believe, if I remember correctly. Let's see here. Yes, 1/2 inch. So that 1/2 inch will fit over there. We'll put that on our socket in a moment. But you basically tighten that down. It's going to pull this back until it's touching these the heads of these bolts. They have like flanged heads on them so that they catch on the slots. Now the one thing you want to do is make sure you get the this puller section on the bottom where it actually contacts your steering column. Get it centered as well as you can. I know it's difficult to do that, but what I like to do is get it centered and get it basically as tight as I can get it by hand, like that, and make sure that we're pretty centered, because you don't want to push too off crooked or anything like that, because you could damage the edge of the threads on the steering column, so we don't want to do that, obviously. So we're going to switch out to our 1/2 inch here, and what you'll do is just start tightening a little bit, and oop, you hear how that just popped like that? This wheel, like I said, I've had off a couple of times, so when I pulled it, it popped and got it off the seat, and then we can just loosen this up. So this will start pulling a lot easier. Usually you'll hear a pop, so if you have a bunch of tension on it where you're really trying to tighten that bolt and you didn't get that pop yet, what you can do, a little trick that I do sometimes, is just tap with a dead blow hammer right here. Give it one little whack when there's some tension on that, and a lot of times that will shock it and get it to pop off of that seat where it's been sitting for a while. So if you haven't heard that pop, you know you probably have, and you have a lot of tension on the ratchet, you know that you're not quite home free yet. So once you do that, we can keep pulling. So even though it popped on for me, we still couldn't get this off by hand. I mean, you could hammer on with a hammer. We don't want to damage the wheel, obviously, especially a nice original wheel like this. So keep pulling this, and eventually, so this wheel is a splined wheel, so once you get past that seat, it eventually will kind of just pull off. So I can feel it's nice and loose here, and then I can just work it by hand, get it to the point where it's pretty much falling off, and then we can switch our socket, take off these bolts, and you can also do this off the car if you want, but let's do it right here. Get them loose. There we go. Alright, there we go. So we got our puller off, and now, there we go, there's our wheel. So this, like I mentioned, this one has a splined steering wheel, which might be kind of hard to see in there, but this is a splined wheel, but at the very bottom it does have a taper on it. So once you bottom the wheel out and crank it down so that it's properly tight, it has that taper, and that's what you're doing, is breaking that taper off with the puller. Once you get past that on these spline wheels, it's pretty easy. It usually just pulls off pretty simple, but some manufacturers used a fully tapered steering shaft with a keyway, and sometimes that will fight you the whole way up if it is a wheel that has some rust or corrosion around there, it hasn't been off in a long time, and you may need to tighten and give that little tap trick that I was telling you. You can also sometimes spray a little bit of Croil or penetrant down in there, and it will loosen it up as you tighten it down and pull it off. So that is the basics on pulling a steering wheel with the Eastwood steering wheel puller kit. Again, you can use this on all types of manufacturers, whether it is old or new vehicles. The kit has pretty much everything you need to pull a steering wheel in your car. If you want to learn more about the steering wheel puller kit, you can click the link down below, or you can visit eastwood.com to get all the tools you need to do the job right. Thanks, guys. Catch you later.